Hey everybody, this is Whitney from Roadside, Angela from Roadside, and we are very excited to be joined today by Christy Bentliff. Christy is the practice administrator at Crowsdale Dental Arts and also an amazing coach with Leap 2 Solutions. We are super excited to have you join us today, Christy.
Oh, I'm so happy that you've asked me to be here. I'm excited to chat with you ladies.
Let's see, Christy, how long have you been with Roadside? We've had a relationship since the
1999.
99.
A
So you
bit.
are you are from the very beginning.
Yes, yes.
I
And
love that.
it's been a great relationship. I started out doing 2 websites with my employer. That was before my current one. And then I've just carried that relationship through my dental career. And so glad that you were able to do an awesome website for Leap 2 Solutions. Love it.
It turned
We
out
love
so
it
great.
too. We love it too. So, Christy, the reason that we wanted to get together today is to kind of chat about some of the challenges that our practice administrators are finding themselves in as they prepare to reopen.
Right.
And we wanted to kind of get your input both as someone in the trenches, but also as a coach. So maybe one of the questions that we can start with is related to the team. Let's talk a little bit about some of your tips to help your team feel confident with new operating procedures, answering patients' questions. What do you recommend?
So I've just gone through this. So I am like you just mentioned, I'm an active practice manager. So now I've turned that into now being the in-house coach for my practice. And so one of the things that I found is, number one, your team is going to have a lot of dental anxiety coming back to work. They're going to have a lot of anxiety. Just you have to make them feel comfortable. So what we did to make them feel more comfortable about re-entry is we made them a part of the process. We didn't just bring them in and say, okay, this is training day and you have no clue as to what's going on. So we developed our relaunch standard operating procedures because things have changed. We shared that with the team for about 2 days before we scheduled a Zoom question and answer. So they had time to read through it and have a good, clear understanding of what our processes were going to be. And then we just had the Zoom chat. Let's talk about this. Do you have any questions? And we just reassured them. And I also sent them pictures of what we have been doing in the office as far as barriers and the medical grade purifiers and things of that nature that we've set up. And also letting them know in the SOP all the PPE that we have that is actually in the office, because they're concerned about these things. They read the forums just like we do. They're on the Facebook and they see that some practices aren't prepared and some of them are very much on top of it. So we wanted to let them know what we were doing from the very beginning. And then we had them come in and by departments, and we trained them where we could have a small group training at the same time. But each department, admin, hygienists, and assistants, they were training in the same way. And we did the same walkthrough of the procedures, and then we met back out as a group. Let's talk about what we've done through training. Do you have any questions? Do you have any input? And they know your office and your patients a lot better than you think. So we had everything lined completely well tuned. We had gone through our walkthrough several times with the owners and myself, but when they came in, they said, I think we have a better way of doing it, which was great. So we had a couple of days to a week that we could tweak the system a little bit. And we relaunch this coming Monday, and I'm excited to see how that's going to be.
That's awesome. Christy, do you also think that it's really important to get the team comfortable answering questions that the patients may have when they come in? Did you guys do any role playing or practicing with that?
So we role played with, so our SOP that we wrote for relaunch matched the e-blast that we sent to the patients. And when I met with the team, it was important that we're mirroring both of those two communications. And so we role played this with admin. How are you going to answer the phone? What are the questions that you're going to ask? How are you, and then I just would throw these odd things that I knew were going to come their way just to see how they would think on the fly with it. And the same thing with the assistants and the clinical team. They needed to be prepared to answer questions of that way. So you do have to role play. Practice makes perfect, in just repetition. Are you going to stumble a little bit that first day? Probably so. So I think at the end of that day, you meet with the team and just say, what went well today? What do we need to work on for the following day? And you might have to do that every day that first week until you get your rhythm down. But I did find that role playing was a valuable tool to have, and it made their confidence level a lot easier for them to deal with moving forward in a live environment.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Christy, from a business perspective, obviously any goals or objectives that the business set back in January,
Mm-hmm.
completely different now. Everything's changed, right?
Completely
So
different.
how would you recommend practices shift or adjust their business goals, marketing priorities over the next, 3 months, 6 months? What are some of the tips that you have for that?
So just as we've gone through from closure of COVID to relaunch, everything is fluid. There's nothing that's staying consistent through this whole thing.
Yeah.
So you've got to be flexible. One thing I've learned with our business is we have to accept the goals that we had when we started in 2020 is not where we're at now, because we've had 2 months of closure. But that being said, dentistry is extremely resilient, even in downward spirals, economies, recessions, and things of that. Dentistry seems to be able to rebound itself, and I feel like it will here. It might be just a little bit slower recovery than we've had before. So I do think that you have to sit down as the leadership team and figure out, okay, what is our new goals? Because you have to factor in, you've got a new set of expenses with the face shields and the N95 mask and just all the things that you have to do now to keep your environment safe. And it's going to be this way. I don't think that this is going away anytime soon. So I think we have to budget those things in. And also, you might want to consider if it was the onset of the year and you did not do a fee increase and you feel maybe you could bump it 1% to kind of cover that. Sometimes I think that might be a better way than just adding like a flat PPE fee. Some of the patients get they've already been out of work. Some of them have possibly losing their job or going to be laid off, and their benefits may not be there. So you just want to be empathetic to what they're going to, because they're going through the same things we are. Finances is a big thing to have to deal with. So try to look for options that are healthy for your budget, but also healthy so that your patients feel like, okay, I can afford to come in. They're working with me to help me through this situation.
And Whitney, I'll jump in too. I know that when we're working with our clients, we're always recommending that they set up a yearly goal and then break them down in quarterly goals.
Right.
So when we're talking with our clients, we're really recommending that they create not just a plan for reopening, so like a 0 to 3 month plan, but then a 3 to 6 month plan. What do we hope that things are going to look like in the next 3 to 6 months, and then a 12 to 18 month plan, knowing that the end goal is the 12 to 18 months, but it's going to take a bit to get there. But we want to know what the end goal is in sight, and that plan B and plan C are likely going to change as we go through this process when we work out all the kinks. But having it clear in your mind where your 18-month or your 1 year end goal is will help everyone stay in alignment as they need to make those adjustments. And
right, and that's what I was talking with the employers now, is that we've been forward, and we see the relaunch, and now we're in the relaunch. So
Right.
now I'm seeing forward, okay, how is this going to look in 12 months? What do we got to do to get to June 18th? Because that would be a month from our opening. And then you got to keep that forward thinking, and you got to watch, how is your revenue? Is your production, is it trending upwards? How are you dealing with your expenses? Because although the creditors have been very nice and the vendors have worked with all of us for deferring payments and things of that nature for a couple of months, now, they're knocking on the door. Okay, we need you to, how can we get you to start paying and things of that nature? So business is now got to start cranking.
Yeah, definitely. So speaking of business needing to start cranking, marketing is a big part of that.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of patients are going to be afraid. They're going to be afraid to come back.
Right.
What do you recommend? We talked about, even with the team, communication is what is going to help the team feel confident coming
Right.
back. How do we then translate that into marketing and communication to patients?
So, like I mentioned before, with the relaunch SOP that we had, the information that we sent out to our patients in the e-blast, it conveyed safety. It expressed all the things that we had in place. And I think it's important that you have these things on your website, that you have these posted on your social media, so that the patients can read and they have an understanding. And then again, when they come in, be confident when they're coming in for that first appointment. I hope that everybody is doing a slow ramp up and not coming back full force, because you need to keep in mind that your patients are going to have a lot of questions. They're also going to want to see that you're taking time to explain, let me show you what we've done in our practice since we closed due to COVID. This is what the safety barriers, as you've seen in our e-blast, that let me show you now that you're in the office. It's important that they feel safe. The patients will return to dentistry. There's no doubt about that. They will be even more critical and watchful that everybody on the team is doing the same thing. So they're going to be judging you more than they ever have before, because it's been in the media that dentistry is the most dangerous profession due to COVID. So they are going to be wanting to see that from the front to the back, and the doctors included are wearing the PPE correctly. They are sterilizing the areas that they're working in. They're going to be looking and watching all those things. So I think it's important that we know that we've got a watchful eye on us right now.
Definitely have that consistency between what's on paper and
absolutely. Your patients are going to want, I call it confidently leading, and that means that the team is saying the same message. They're walking the talk now. We've talked about it, now we're walking it. And if you all are in sync, which is aligning, then your patients are gonna feel that energy. They're gonna feel that everybody is confident in their working environment, and then they're gonna feel confident in being there.
For sure. Angela, what about you? I know you've talked to practices all across the country. What are some of the things that they're doing to help, address the fears of patients coming back?
I think that a lot of the things is just over communicating with patients.
Mm-hmm.
Again, reassuring them, making sure that they know what the new procedures are and why it benefits them. I mean, we're always reminding our clients, people we work with, to put everything in what's in it for me language. Remind them that all of these new procedures, all of these safety things are for their benefit, and this is how it benefits them. Because
Right.
then if there is a fee adjustment in the practice, or if there is an additional fee for the PPE, or whatever the practice decides to do, they feel more confident that you're not just throwing fees at them, that you did all of these extra things for their safety, for the community safety, for your team safety, and it makes them a lot more acceptant of it. So I think just really over communicating and making sure the team is really comfortable with that language and that verbiage, practicing how they're going to express it and practicing the need behind it. Not just, this is our new protocol, but how's it benefiting you and patient? How's it helping you? If everyone on the team is really comfortable with that, it's going to make the transition, everyone's going to be united, then transition is going to be much smoother.
And I just want to add, a lot of times we assume that everybody reads our email and that everybody watches our Facebook or everybody sees everything on Instagram. But now that this COVID situation has occurred, people have sort of gotten away from the media part. There is just information overload. So when you are calling these patients or when they're calling in, you don't assume that they know. Don't assume that they've read the information that you've sent to them. When you ask a question, are you familiar with the things that we put in place to make this a safe and comfortable environment for you as we're moving through this COVID crisis? And ask them if they happen to have read the e-blast. If they say no, this is a great opportunity to just start explaining some of the things. And again, it's another layer of that safety and making them feel comfortable and confident. Because we experienced that this week when they were starting to call the schedule, is that, yeah, I remember seeing something come in, but I didn't read it. And I haven't been on Facebook that much. So again, that was closing that gap that, we tend to think that they're reading everything we send to them, and not necessarily so.
Right. I think that's a good point, because I know that a lot of people, I heard kind of negative or frustration that every person you've ever done business with in the history of your business experience has sent you an email about what they did post-COVID or what they did in the middle of COVID. And so people in general they just dismissed them. They're not even reading those because it's just another privacy practice that every single person I've come in contact with. Unfortunately, sometimes that relates to ones we actually do want to see because we're so used to hitting delete before we read. So we've even noticed that with our clients, is that we'll send them out actual valuable information. We're like, no, that wasn't a standard email. That was actually to you. so just remembering that people are not, being malice. They're just deleting because it's information overload.
It is. And I did print out some of the e-blast that we sent out, just because some of the patients, when they came in this week for emergency visits and they would indicate that they had not received it, we would say, we have a copy if you would love it. We'd be happy to give that to you. And they were appreciative of that. So, sometimes it's nice to present them with that. And they may have a neighbor that's looking for a dentist and they're like, oh, this is what they're doing. I have this form here that shows what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think that's so important too, because that emphasizes why one email blast, not enough.
No, it's not.
Not enough. We have to be mirroring that messaging on our website, on our Google My Business page, on social media. We need to put it everywhere that we can, so that, a patient might have received that email in May.
Right.
They're not actually going to visit you until, let's say, the beginning of June.
Right.
So they're not thinking about that. But then when they start to get ready for their appointment beginning of June, they're going to be like, oh goodness, what's my new appointment procedure going to be like? Can I go to the waiting room? And then they're going to go to your website just to check, okay, what are they doing? So that's why it's so important to have that information available.
And it is, and again, like I said, don't assume that they've read anything. This is why it's extremely important. In dentistry, communication is everything. I've been in it 34 years, and one of the first things that we did was role playing. When I first entered dentistry, it was role playing those communication skills with your patients so that everybody felt comfortable with it. And the same applies with this. The way we check in patients is different. In our particular practice, we are sending now all the forms electronic. We're requesting them to come back to us prior to the appointment, and then we're triaging them at carside. We're going out and we're taking the temperatures there. So we need to let them know, when you come in for your appointment, please park in the designated parking spot. call the office to let us know if you're in slot 1, 2, 3, whatever the case may be, and we will be out to do your triage. So they know what to expect, and like I said, we've role played it. So we actually did it live, this week while we had emergencies, and our patients were blown away at how efficient it was. But again, you only get there by repetition and role playing. So take some days, because I promise you, if you take a couple of days to do these things with your team, meet with them, have the Zoom meeting, train, and role play, it will make your relaunch and your patients so much better.
Couldn't agree more. And Christy, you mentioned that you've been in dentistry for 34 years. So you started in dentistry as a toddler, right?
Yes, that's right. Thank you for recognizing I'm in my 20s now.
So, we talked a little bit earlier about some of the financial barriers that people are going to be experiencing.
Yes.
We don't fully know what the economy is going to look like over the next couple of years, but it's safe to say it's not going to look the same.
Right.
A lot of people have lost their jobs or their dental insurance. What should practices be doing right now to address some of those financial barriers that are going to be in place probably for the next few years?
So I think what I'm seeing now, just because I'm working in the environment, a lot of our patients are concerned that they may lose their job in a couple of months, even though they may have been working still or just re-entering the workforce right now. So they are wanting to get in and obviously use their benefits. So you've got a surge of them wanting to use their benefits immediately because they're fearing that they may lose their job later in a downhill spiral of the economy. So try to help navigate them and get them in for appointments. And then the other thing is, if you don't have an in-house plan for them, consider getting something like Clear, where it's a membership plan that kind of eases the burden of the finances. And Clear is a very reputable one. There are many of them out there. I tend to lean towards that one because I feel that it covers all of the legalities for the state, local, federal regulations, and it's user-friendly.
Yeah, we love Clear
We love
too.
Clear.
We are just so impressed with their service. We've been recommending them to everyone because I think you're right.
Yeah, a lot of practices don't have, financial options like Care Credit, or there's many financial institutions that offer things like that. That might be something else that you want to consider, because that would give them another avenue. I don't feel like having like 5 or 6 things is a good thing, because you can't manage all of them, but pick maybe 3 things. Your patient base. If most business owners know their patient base, they know the age bracket that they're dealing with, and just try to pick at least 1 to 3 things that would work for the different demographics that you have.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if there's too many options, it becomes
too much.
Overwhelming for the patients too.
Right. And then it's not cost effective for the business either when you have that many.
Yeah. Angela, I would love to hear from you on this. So the practices that are doing this, let's say they're implementing a membership plan, they have a couple of financial options to help make it easier. How should they then be communicating that and marketing that?
Well, it's really important to be making all the arrangements, all the options you have visible and available so that everyone knows, even if you don't want to lay out the details, maybe in on your website, if you don't want to go into too many specifics, just financial options available. Letting them know that you have a way to work with them, that you have some way to help them overcome that barrier, and then they can, speak with the team directly as to what those different choices are. But I would definitely make sure that they have that languaging out there, that we are working with people. We do have multiple financial choices. We're working with you. So I think that's the biggest thing, is making it evident, because patients, unless you kind of blast it, patients aren't going to know. Especially if you were let's say you traditionally did not have a payment arrangement, you didn't have any type of service like that, they're going to assume that's the way it's going to be going forward. And if you've implemented one, how would they know? And they may hesitate from being seen because they just lost their job, they don't have insurance, they're not sure. The unknown of the cost, especially, I think it's important for patients that had dental insurance and they were used to a good portion of it being covered by their insurance, and now they've become uninsured. People view dentistry as if the same way they view medical. If I walk in the door, it's going to cost me $1 million, and that's terrifying. So I shouldn't even go in because I'm going to be slapped with some humongous bill that I could never afford. So being transparent that this is the cost for an exam, let's get a starting point so that they don't think that they're going to walk in and walk out with a $5,000 unexpected bill, like if you were hospitalized.
That's right.
It's not the same situation.
And if you can, if the patient comes in and they have a lot of work to be done, you after they've been in your treatment room, you start to have that relationship with them, and where they're at and where their anxiety levels are. If there's a way to break their treatment up in phase 1, 2, and 3 to ease the financial burden and kind of complete one before you go to the next phase, that helps. And that's true in dentistry before this, but it's even more truer at this particular junction.
That segues really nicely into my next question, which is that case acceptance is going to be very important moving forward. What are your tips to help teams succeed at that?
Well, it's just like I said before, information overload. People process information. I'm a visual person, and I'm very, I like to talk. So one of the things that I've found, and it's just something that I've kind of stumbled on, and I've been working in our practice with this philosophy. So we ask our patients, how do you want to be communicated with? And they get that kind of puzzled look. And I will say, do you like visual? Do you like information? Do you like a combination of both? And for me, I like visual, and I want you to talk to me. So I like the combination of both, and I want you to present treatment to me in that manner. And I find if you can find that style of communication that the patient wants to have you communicate with, it helps to make them at ease in talking about treatment. We should never shy away or feel uncomfortable telling a patient what they need, especially even though it's in this particular time. But we have to also listen to them and ask questions. It's not, they may not readily accept what you're presenting. They may need to know that there's another option. If they have a crown that needs to be done, is there an option that they could do a four surface filling? Something like that. They need to know what their options are, and you need to listen to them and read their body language. Nonverbal communication speaks volume. It's something that we often don't cue in on because we're talking, but sometimes it's nice to just pause a little bit and try to read their body language, and then start trying to ask questions. Is there anything that would be standing in your way from moving forward with the treatment that we've talked about? Do you have any questions? And then pause and listen. Let them have time to process what you've asked and come back with some questions.
Definitely. Good tips. I would love also to hear, Christy, just, marketing related, not marketing related, what would be your top, say, 3 tips for practices getting ready to reopen or about to reopen?
Well, again, making the patients feel safe and comfortable by letting them know what you've implemented in your environment while dealing with COVID. The second thing would be making sure that they know that your team is fully trained on the new procedures, because a lot of times we don't talk about that, and the patients want to know. And if you are a practice that is, when a regular team member is on vacation, if you're bringing in temps, which we do a lot, if you're still going to be doing that, you need to let them know that these temps are also receiving the same level of training and know our environment just as well as our regular team members do. Mm-hmm. And if that means that they can't start at that 8 o'clock appointment when they're filling in because we're training, that's okay, because you want the temps to feel comfortable in your office as well. Yeah. So I wanted to let that out because it is vacation time. Not that a lot of, once they return to dentistry, the staff, may or may not be taking time off, but if you're going to be utilizing temps, I think it's a good idea to make sure that your patients know they've also been trained.
That's a really good tip.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you want to share?
I am just excited to get back to dentistry like everybody else. And one thing I can tell you, I know a lot of you haven't been in your practices and you're kind of worried if your patients are going to return. I can tell you we are in a high volume medical community, and we are in a hot spot where we've had, you know, the herd as far as COVID spreading. But our patients are ready to return. They are calling, they're excited that we're back, they're confident in what we're doing, and we've already got our schedules full for the next couple of weeks. Now, I did want to mention, obviously, practices have been closed for 2 months or longer, so you've got a backlog of patients. And when you come back to dentistry, you're going to be, I hope, a slow ramp up for the 2 weeks, and then maybe tighten it up and keep going. But consider that you might have to add an hour before your normal start time, or an hour at the end of your normal day, or if you work Monday through Thursday, you might want to consider, you know, adding a Friday in there, because you want to take care of those patients that had to be canceled due to that closure time, and provide them. And you're going to have patients that are going to cancel and they don't feel comfortable coming in, so you're always going to have spaces to plug. But I do think opening up, I don't think going too far out, because then the schedulers will have maybe 3 or 4 people on a Friday and it's not full, and then you have to reschedule them. So kind of take it to, I feel like a 2 week at a time, then add slowly through that. That way you're not burning your staff out and you're not getting too far scheduled.
Great suggestion.
So that's what we're doing with us right now.
That's a great suggestion. You know, on behalf of both Angela and I just want to say thank you, Christy, for coming on and sharing your experience and your expertise, and your positive attitude too. I think that's just so important, and we love it.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, the most, you know, we in dentistry, we have a lot of fun as a team. You know, most of the time you have a team that is in complete sync and harmony, and it will be the same thing when you return. And you gotta have those moments where you have fun, because life, you only got, you know, one life to live. You got to make it fun, and your patients feed on that energy. So if they've been used to this before you closed for COVID, you know, don't lose that when you're bringing them back, because they need that positive energy. They are seeking it right now. So have a little fun with them.
Totally
I
agree.
don't know how we can just clone Christy and just mail her to all of our practices, because
Yes,
every one of them need her. So let's just, you know, mail her out, because she's just adorable.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention this. So, like, if in downtimes, which we may have when we're first coming back, consider some of these patients that maybe an assistant has a really good relationship with, or a doctor has a good relationship, or an admin person has a good relationship, and just call them. Just say, I had some free time and I was thinking about you, and I was wondering how you were doing, you know, with all of this, and I just wanted to check on you. It doesn't have to be about dentistry. You know, it's about the relationship. I just wanted to see how you're doing.
I love that suggestion.
Good idea.
Well, thank you, Christy. As
You're
always a pleasure to get to chat with you.
Yes.
And thank you, everybody, for watching. And if you have any questions, you can get in touch with Christy via her new website, which is leap2solutions.com. That's leap and then the number 2 solutions.com. We're going to have it here on the screen for you. So please don't hesitate to get in touch with either us or with Christy if you have any questions. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Christy.
Bye.